The Federal Aviation Administration would confirm that there are no aircraft in the area at the time of the incident. So unless the U.S. was conducting a not-so-secret missile test, some foreign nation was trying to get our attention, most likely the Chinese, who may not be happy with the Obama administration's handling of the financial crisis, since the falling value of the American dollar greatly hurts their economy, and this may have been a message to voice their displeasure. The U.S. Air Force has successfully tested their new unmanned spacecraft. The X-37B was launched into orbit on April 22nd with the help of an Atlas V rocket from Cape Canaveral, Florida. It had been in space for 7 months before it returned to Earth, landing at Vandenberg Air Force Base in California. The X-37B is tiny compared to the space shuttle that is currently being phased out. The ship is 9.5 feet tall by 29 feet long and a 15-foot wingspan. The 7,000-pound ship is designed to be launched from Atlas V rockets and uses solar panels to generate power from the sun while in orbit. Development of the spacecraft was initially started by NASA, but then it was taken over by the Pentagon for their research and development arm and eventually settled in the Air Force's Rapid Capabilities Office. The function and mission of the spacecraft remains a secret, but it is thought to be used in space for combat support systems as well as weapon systems. As the Air Force develops its space-based defenses, NASA has taken steps in developing a plan to send a manned spacecraft on a one-way mission to colonize other planets. The plan is known as the 100-Year Starship. Over $1 million in funding was given to the Ames Research Center to start development of the project. The Ames Research Center is one of NASA's main research and development partners in space travel. The director of the center, Pete Worden, broke news of the project at the Long Conversation event in San Francisco. Worden hopes to get further funding from billionaires to create a fund for the 100-Year Starship. Worden stated that the main aim of the project is to settle other worlds. The initial projected price tag for the project is $10 billion. Worden hinted that the new technologies like synthetic biology and alterations to the human genome could be used to assist the project. Mars and its moons would be the first likely target for the spacecraft. They estimate that they could have a man on Mars by 2030. It's interesting to note that they may use genetic engineering to help move the project along. What kind of changes to the human genome would be necessary to move the project along? Changing people's DNA could have disastrous effects, as well as sounding a lot like Genesis 6, when fallen angels came down and mixed genetically with man. Transgenics research is in full swing, and it is the hope of certain individuals to remake man in their image. Iran's nuclear facilities are in a state of disarray and are effectively shut down due to name the Stuxnet virus. In November, the International Atomic Energy Agency reported that Iran has suspended work on its nuclear field production facilities, likely the result of the Stuxnet virus. The Stuxnet virus has turned out to be the most advanced and aggressive malware in history. Iran is having extreme difficulties in dealing with it, and they are going to have to replace much of their computers and equipment in their nuclear facilities. It is believed that it will set their nuclear production back 2 years. Israel is the #1 suspect for the cyber attack, although they may have had help from the U.S. in writing the virus code. The virus has enabled the effective closing of the nuclear facilities without a military strike. The delay of their nuclear program without bloodshed is definitely a positive because at least for a time it will prevent a potential war in the Middle East over it. Unfortunately, it is not a permanent solution, and Israel and the world will have to deal with what to do with Iran sometime around 2012. On October 21st, in Miami, Florida, residents who lived along 34th Avenue between 15th and 16th Terrace were awakened by a loud boom and the screeching of tires. When they looked outside to investigate, they found dozens of dead animals who had their heads cut off lying between 2 city blocks. The stench from the animals indicated that they were dead for a while, and the animals consisted of goats, cats, and different types of birds, including chickens. Miami police suspect it might have been done by someone who was involved with Santeria, a voodoo-like religion practiced by Cubans that involved animal sacrifice. It is not the first time ritualistic animal killings have occurred in the Miami area. These events happening close to Halloween make you wonder Was it the work of someone practicing Santeria, or was it someone practicing Satanism? From a Christian perspective, there is no difference between those who worship Satan directly or those who do it indirectly in worship of other gods, spirits, and nature. All those who do not accept Jesus Christ as their one and only Savior are lost. This is a hard pill to swallow for some. In a world where we're being told everyone else's religion is just as valid as your own, religious fundamentalism and exclusivity is looked down upon. Jesus tells his followers that you will be hated for my name's sake. To this day, Christians are hated and being persecuted. In Vietnam, December of this year, a Protestant pastor and human rights activist was beaten unconscious by officials in Ho Chi Minh City, and they also bulldozed the Bible school he had operated. 500 police, soldiers, and fire officials showed up at 7 a.m. in the morning and began demolishing the building. As the building was being destroyed, the pastor of the church, Nguyen Hong Quang, was beaten with batons until he became unconscious. Quang and 5 members of his church were arrested and taken to an undisclosed location on charges of resisting arrest for an incident that had occurred 6 years prior. In 2004, Quang called for the release of Christians who were arrested for distributing Christian literature in Ho Chi Minh City. A few months after he spoke out for his fellow Christians, he was arrested for interfering with officials trying to carry out their duties. They raided his house, took all his money and files detailing human rights violations by the Vietnamese government. Quang's recent arrest came after several critical reports were written about him in the government-run newspapers, and officials had tried to persuade leaders and students associated with Quang's group to leave it. Vietnam does allow for freedom of worship in its constitution, but only government-controlled churches are tolerated. In early December of this year in Baghdad, an elderly Christian couple were shot and killed in their home by terrorists. This was one of several attacks against Christians in Iraq that have been occurring for months. The worst attack occurred on Halloween when terrorists invaded the Our Lady of Salvation Church located in Baghdad and killed 70 people and wounded 75 others. As we get closer to the tribulation, persecution against Christians will probably get worse and start occurring in countries that are not generally known for persecuting Christians. DNA tests of villagers in a secluded section of China have revealed that 56% of their genetic makeup is Caucasian in origin. The villagers of Sichuan, which borders the northwestern corner of the Gobi Desert, have long suspected that they were related to the survivors of a lost Roman legion. In 53 BC, Marcus Crassus, a Roman general, went into battle against a larger group of Parthians. The Parthians were from what is today known as Iran. The battle didn't go well for the Romans. Thousands of Roman soldiers were killed, and Marcus Crassus was beheaded by the Parthians. Some sources indicated that the surviving groups of soldiers fled east towards China to escape capture. Some believe that they later fought as mercenaries in a conflict between the Huns and the Chinese in 36 BC. Chinese chronicles refer to the capture of a fish scale formation of troops. This may refer to the tortoise phalanx formation used by the Roman army. The soldiers were thought to have been released and settled in western China. The Caucasian DNA in the Chinese villagers is undisputable, but whether they descended from the lost Roman legion is a lot harder to prove. Other experts believe that the villagers could be descended from the army of Huns who fought through Central Asia at a later time. The Hun army had some Caucasian soldiers in it. Also, another source for the Caucasian DNA may be possible mummified corpses of ancient Europeans which were found in the desert near the area, and the villagers may be descended from them. Archaeologists plan to conduct exploratory digs in the region along the Silk Route to see if any evidence of the lost legionnaires can be found, such as forts or Roman artifacts. In Egypt, archaeologists have discovered a new ancient ceremonial road and the sphinxes that lined it. Near the Luxor Temple, 12 sphinxes were found off a road known as Sphinx Alley. Sphinx Alley had been discovered a few years ago. It was built by Amenhotep III, the father of the pharaoh Akhenaten. Fragments of 850 sphinxes that lined the road